Karabakh Armenians repulse an attack by Azerbaijan. Tanks outflank and crush the offensive. This is just an exercise, but it's bound to be heard by the enemy. The Azeris are behind these hills, 10 kilometers away. The message is clear. If you're thinking of striking us, think again.
Bring the company unit in and move to the command watch position.
We're in Agdam. Karabakh Armenians seized the area from the Azeris in 1993 and turned it into a buffer zone for their self-declared Republic of Nagorno-Karabakh. They say they're ready to hold it by any means.
We have never said that we would fight only defensive battles. Let the name of our army not mislead anybody. The Defense Army was designed to carry out both defensive and attacking operations.
The war games are watched by the presidents of both Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. A reminder that Armenia remains vital for Karabakh's security and economic survival.
One rifleman sits there. Another sits on the other side. The space wasn't large enough, so we made it bigger.
Around 20,000 soldiers ensure that Karabakh's 150,000 civilians don't come under Azeri rule again. In 1921, the enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh was attached to Azerbaijan, then a Soviet republic. 70 years later, as the Soviet Union collapsed, Karabakh's Armenian majority broke away from Azerbaijan. A 3-year war followed, killing 30,000 people. The two sides signed a tenuous truce, but a peace deal has eluded them. Before the fighting, Muslim Azeris lived alongside Christian Armenians. But the Azeris were driven out, leaving behind ghost towns such as Agdam. The Azeri flight to the east ended in camps for internally displaced people. The UN has documented nearly 600,000 Azeri IDPs. Another France 24 team found some of them at this former student residence in the capital, Baku.
There are about 100 families living here, and there are about 10 that much big dormitories around this area. And it's about 1,000 families have been living here just for 20 years.
Anar is 30. When he was the same age as these children, he fled Nagorno-Karabakh. As a child, he moved from one camp to another. Today, he helps his fellow IDPs, raising their issues with the Azeri government.
It's too dangerous to live here, actually, because the foundation of the building is not too much strong, and it can fall down in any case. I mean, it's too dangerous.
This is how they live, despite their country's economy growing 20% a year during the mid-decade oil boom. But the only oil these Azeris have seen is cooking oil.
The first problem for those kids, their normal education and the health care. You can't be strong, physically healthy, and mentally healthy if you live in this condition. You can't. It's totally difficult, and you can't have a normal education.
With its Caspian Sea breeze, this former Soviet holiday camp outside Baku is a gentler place for IDPs. It's home to Elshan Maradova, a mason.
This is the children's room. The children sleep here.
Elshan and his wife Tamila fled Karabakh when their city, Shusha, fell to Armenian forces just over 20 years ago. They remember the good life.
People never said, "Oh, you're Armenian and I'm Azeri," or "I'm a local and you're a foreigner." And you didn't hear things like, "You're a Christian and I'm a Muslim."
The couple abandoned their possessions. Only the photos survive.
This was Lennon Avenue. That's what it was called then, you see. That's the park, and that's me in front of a shop. I was a tour guide. I worked in 4 different places.
20 years later, Elshan is still rebuilding his life and his house. The government helps a little. As an IDP, he gets around 16 euros a month. Elshan's hometown is now fully Armenian and Christian. They call it Shushi, not Shusha. Some traces of the Azeri presence remain, but mostly the scars of war are visible. Here too, people are rebuilding their lives.
Since my father was wounded, I've taken over. I'm obliged to. In any case, I have time. I don't have that much to do. We have to build to prepare ourselves for the unknown. We don't know what the future will bring.
It's not surprising they're on their guard. In 1988, the family fled anti-Armenian violence in Azerbaijan. Azeris moved into their former home in Baku. Edik later enlisted in the Karabakh army. To thank him for his war service, the authorities gave him this house. It used to belong to Azeris.
The building was about to collapse. It was in a very bad state, so we're rebuilding it more solidly. I sold a piece of land. Thank God the government is also helping us to make a family home.
We're going in?
Yes, let's go. Go in, Dad.
Let's have something to eat.
Yes.
The conflict didn't just destroy homes and livelihoods. It broke spirits and snapped the cord that had once bound Armenians and Azeris. We ask a rhetorical question. Could the two peoples live together again?
It's totally unimaginable. Now we just live among ourselves.
Why?
What do you mean, why? How do you want us to live with them after all the war and after so much blood was spilled? The question doesn't even come into our minds. I was wounded in the war. Am I going to live together with the people who wounded me?
That sentiment has not changed despite 18 years of international talks aimed at resolving the conflict. But here in Stepanakert, a small group of Armenians and Azeris is trying to build bridges. This is the de facto capital of Nagorno-Karabakh. A city of 50,000, it has all the trappings of a state, a parliament, financial institutions, and a publicly owned TV and radio company. A team of Azeri speakers is preparing a show reaching out to Azerbaijan.
Okay, in today's broadcast, we're going to focus on the Poetry Festival. We'll talk about it in our news block.
The program offers half an hour of news and commentary going out twice a week.
This is Stepanakert, the capital of the Republic of Nagorno-Karabakh. You're listening to the program The Voice of Justice. I'm Ophelia Sahakian.
Most of the journalists are Armenians who grew up with Azeris.
We'll be bringing you stories from Karabakh, Armenia, Azerbaijan and other countries. In the second half, we'll have news analysis.
The team is headed by Raya Babayeva, an Azeri who chose to stay in Karabakh after the war.
My team and I hope that this program will bring our nations closer. I want it to lead to mutual understanding and reconciliation. Even if that doesn't happen today, tomorrow, our peoples will probably live together and be friends again. All our work here is directed towards that goal.
Raya's take is highly optimistic. On the front line, attitudes are as immobile as the trenches. The scene is straight out of the First World War. These are among the last active trenches in the world. We're in Azerbaijan, in the region of Fizuli. The front snakes from south to north over 250 kilometers. Private Javid Isakov observes Armenian positions 500 meters away.
My parents and my relatives are very proud that I'm serving in the Azeri army and that I'm standing up against the Armenian aggressor and defending my country.
Javid was a baby when Armenians and Azeris signed a ceasefire, a truce that's riddled with bullets.
The Armenians often open fire and we shoot back. That usually shuts them up pretty quickly.
Both sides accuse each other of violating the ceasefire. It's hard to monitor, but the result is at least 60 killed on both sides in the last 2 years. That's according to the International Crisis Group. Snipers kill or injure soldiers nearly every month. This is anything but a frozen conflict.